Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Tank. I'm your host, Tyler Rains. Now, I wanted to address something before we get into the episode here because you've noticed at this point, I think on the YouTube channel, it's been a little bit bare. There hasn't been as much content being produced. There hasn't been a new episode of Inside the Tank in quite a while since that last explanation for that reason. And for those of you who have been keeping up with my Twitter and some of the things that I've tweeted, a little while ago, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. She's obviously doing a lot better now. But I think for a little while, probably after the new year, I kind of started to decline mentally. My mental health wasn't the greatest. I was, in a way, I felt like I just didn't have the motivation or, the energy to record. And, I always say it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's your dream career, whether it's your regular 9-to-5 job, your mental health always comes first. So the reason why you haven't seen a whole lot of new content recently is because, it's taken a toll on me. And to be honest with you, I missed it. I pulled myself out of it and I thought, you know what? It's time to get back to the thing that I love to do the most. So for those who have supported me throughout this entire thing, for those who have supported our family, from the bottom of my heart, I would like to say thank you. And I'm looking forward to getting back into our regular Steelheads chats every week. I'm looking at maybe possibly doing the idea of a game-by-game basis. So instead of doing every week, it might be every game. So that's a possibility that I'm going to try and explore as well. But I think for right now, we're getting back into it because I missed you all and I hope you missed me, but it's been crazy. And I just wanted to get that out of the way and let you know that I'm not gone. I didn't vanish out of thin air. Sometimes you just need to take a break, take a breather and, sort things out amongst yourself. So with that being said, we have a ton to talk about in this episode. And seeming as how there was another triple header with the Steelheads, might as well talk about that for a little bit because there is a lot to talk about in that. And I wanted to go into that first game against Barrie, which I don't know how to say that it was a good game because the goals were there. Plenty of goals being scored, 10 goals throughout the entire game from both teams. But there wasn't much else. It did not look good. So, first period of that game starts off. And the Colts take a 2-0 lead. They score those early goals in the first minute and I believe the 8th minute again. They go from, I don't get it. I don't get this team sometimes. They go from being top dogs and not allowing a goal all game to, hey, first minute jitters, nothing we can do about it. And it wasn't just one, it was two. And that basically, the reason why you hate the goals in the first and the last minute of a period, as Ray Ferraro says, if you play the EA Sports video games, the most cursed goals are in the first minute and the last minute. Why does that kind of bother me about the Steelheads is because some of the time during this season and in previous seasons, it almost feels like once that first goal is scored in the first period, it kind of dictates the pace of the game. So when you have an early goal like that and it gets to the point where you're letting it dictate the pace of the game and the result, it's not going to go over well. So they scored that first one. Barrie tacks on a second one. It was awful. That first period was not good. So, second period starts. James Hardy, the captain, tacks on 2 goals. It's 2-2. They tie it up. And then McDonnell and Van Volsen get in on the scoring. And now it is 4-3. The Colts get one back. It's 4-3. So that second period was a lot more, I think, offensive. They really pulled themselves out of the jam there. And then in the third period, the wheels just fell off the wagon. They ended up losing that game 6-4. They had a 4-3 lead, and then they let in 3 consecutive goals. 3 unanswered goals. And the reason why they lost the game was the big errors. It was the turnovers. Not so much the penalties, but it definitely didn't help them by not staying out of the box. So that helped them. And one of the things that I could not get around is the first 2 goals that Barrie scored. It looked like the defense was out of position. It looked like they were out of position. Because if you look at the initial replay from the first goal that was scored, Chaz Sharp was chasing a phantom puck, and, everybody else was just way behind it. It was not good. Now, it by no means is this a knock against any of the players, but it kind of is as well. Because in order to prevent goals from being scored and to help the goalie out, hey, yeah, you should probably do that every once in a while. You have to not lose your guy and be out of position. And I know it's a literal impossible for hockey players, especially defensemen. But in a situation like that, you saw him coming. You were just not in the right place, the right time. That was, it was a catastrophe. Absolute catastrophe. Chaos. Pure chaos. But there were some positives from this game because they did have that goal scoring support. James Hardy inched closer to Riley Brace's record now, and I'm going to talk about that later on in the episode as well. But that set them up, I think, for a huge wake-up call on Friday night against the Owen Sound Attack, who were visiting for the first time since the 2020 season, if you remember that. That was the COVID-shortened year. Yeah, nobody wants to think about that one. But that was a really crazy time. And this game was one of the best played, I think one of the hardest fought games of this whole month, because they've played incredible through this last stretch. They played incredible through this last 7 or 8 game stretch. And they have had their bad games, like the one against Barrie. That was just flat out. There's no making an excuse for it. That was a bad game. It is what it is. I mean, you can't really say differently. But more often than not, they've played so good. And I don't know how, but they've looked better than half the teams in the Eastern Conference. They have just done something that I have not seen done since the 2016-17 season, and just overcome the odds. Now, they're not as good as they were back then, obviously, because they won the Central Division back then, but they're showing shades of that 16-17 team, which is pretty impressive. So the first period opens up scoreless for most of the first period, and then guess who? Captain James Hardy scores the goal to get the Steelheads on the board, and it was a rocket. If you want to talk about a hard shot, and if you want to talk about laser precision, and I'm not talking like, hey, yeah, that's a good shot on the net. I'm talking like dead target accuracy thing. You know what I mean? That was a laser, an absolute laser of a shot. So he ties the game up late in the first. Second period begins. Colby Barlow, 2 minutes into the second period, ties it up. What was that? What was that about the early goals? That was the theme of the first. Barlow ties it up in the second. And that's going to be it. But then something interesting happens. Because as soon as that goal was scored, you could feel the wheels turning. And what do I mean by that? I mean that line of Schwint, Van Volsen, and Martone starts clicking. And then McDonnell and his line start clicking. And then the whole thing starts clicking. And then you get 2 goals unanswered. Boom. Beautiful. Steelheads lead 3-2. What helped in this game? Power plays. Good chances. Heavy scoring chances. They stayed back and they helped defend their team. See, the big thing is about this game, it was a complete 180. And this is what I'll keep saying for as long as it happens. They have a weak first game in a triple header series, and then it's usually, not all the time, but it's usually the second and third games that they take control of. And this game, it felt like they just took control of this game, grabbed it by the horns and steered it where they wanted to go. They did an amazing job of defending. The goal support was there. They really looked like they were ready to do this, and they did. They got it done. So that leads into the Pucks and Paws game against the Sudbury Wolves, ironically enough. They were, oof. That was a roller coaster of a game right there, because it was a game that everybody was excited for. The first Pucks and Paws game was a huge success. They had, I think, a season record turnout, 3,700 or something like that, 3,700 people, which was amazing. You love to see people like that coming out to games like that. That first period was ugly. They went down 3-0, and it wasn't till late in the first period when James Hardy once again gets them back on the board. I'm going to keep mentioning him because he's just the top goal scorer in the... You know what? Say what you will. He's the top goal scorer in the league. I'm going to say it right here, right now. If you don't agree with me, that's your thing. That's your opinion. But I've seen it time and time again. He does not fail. When it comes to goal scoring, laser precision, hard shot, he knows where to aim. He knows the right place, right time. So he gets one back. Early in the second period, these guys start packing the heat. All right? They start looking ferocious. They line up the target right where they want them. And then they decide to just go in and tie the game very early on. So it's now 3-3. So they were down 3-0, came back, it's 3-3. And now I'm thinking to myself, okay, we got a game. So for those who know him, Jordan Davidson, right? Jordan's vlogs, if you haven't already checked them out. He has this thing going on where every time the Steelheads are down, by a certain amount of goals, it's usually 3 goals or 4 goals. The one chip watch, which basically he says that if they come back and win after being down by a certain amount, then he'll do the one chip challenge. Well, this game, unfortunately for him, was the day that he had to do it, because they came back. It's 3-3. Quentin Musty gets one back 3 minutes later. Angus McDonnell. He is incredible. I will keep saying that over and over and over and over and over again. He's incredible. Excuse me. One of the most exciting players to watch on this team, I think, since he got brought in at the trade deadline. And one of my favorite players to watch, I think, because he's just so fast and he's so good with the puck. Seeing him score that goal in the second period just gave the fans hope. So now it's 4-4. Andre Anania scores, but then Porter Martone, in typical Porter Martone fashion, ties the game up. It's now 5-5, going to overtime in a game that has been nothing short of amazing. Now, again, you got to watch it. You have to watch your defense. And I've been saying this all along, right? It looked like sometimes they were out of position in this game too, but you need to just make sure that you're not going over the edge, taking stupid penalties, things like that. And, there weren't a ton of penalties taken in this game, but the ones that were a bit stupid. They were a bit dumb. Nothing they can really do about it. But overtime solves nothing. They go to a shootout. Fun fact about the Steelheads in the shootout last year, contrary to popular belief about them actually being bad in the shootouts, they're good. They've only been to a shootout twice this season, and both times they've won, including yesterday, by the way. So Hardy goes in to score. It was incredible. Okay, they go back and forth a little bit. The Wolves missed 2 shots consecutively. Charlie Callahan absolutely knifes it, roofs it, game over. We're going home with a win. 4 out of 6 points. And the lucky number here is 4. Why is the lucky number 4, you may ask? The lucky number is 4 because not only did they get 4 points this weekend, James Hardy also had 4 goals. And also, they are 4th place in the Eastern Conference. So they got 4 points. Hardy scored 4 goals. And they're 4th place in the Eastern Conference. The lucky number this week is 4. I don't know why. I came up with that right on the spot. But the lucky number is 4. Perfect. That is a way to cap off the weekend. Now, this week has been incredible in terms of the new look lines, which I'm going to talk about. Obviously, James Hardy inching 1 step closer to Riley Brace's obviously stepping 1 step closer to Riley Brace's record of 234. I believe he's at 231 points right now. And this was Riley Brace's record combined with the majors and the Steelheads. So technically, he'll become the sole possessor of both records, even though, I mean, technically, he already has the Steelheads franchise record. But it'll be interesting to see him break it anyway. So there's a couple things that I really, really want to talk about. The line of Schwint, Van Volsen, and Martone has been amazing over the past 7 games. And keep in mind, this is the 3rd line. Over the past 7 games, they have 15 points combined in 7 games. But that's not just it. The line of Hardy, Misa, and Vecchia is on fire. And when I say on fire, you thought that 15 points in 7 games was crazy? Same amount of games, right? For this line, through the last 7 games since the OHL trade deadline. 41 points combined between the 3 of them. Yeah. 41 points in 7 games between the 3 of them. How insane is that? This team's starting to look really scary. And regardless of how young they are or how inexperienced they are in the playoffs, I think they could do some damage. This team is looking absolutely terrifying to play against. They have another couple games coming up this weekend. It's going to be very fun, especially after this dominant performance this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do next weekend because this team has proven at this point, anybody who is saying they can't do it, they're this, they're that, whatever, drop it. They have their good games, they have their bad games, but this is a dominant streak. It's coming up on Friday night and Sunday afternoon, and those are going to be very exciting. I know that after this week's dominant performance, I'm very excited to see it. So without further ado, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell notification for all future content, and follow us on our social medias down below if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching. On behalf of myself and the entire podcast, as well as CW Sports Memorabilia, our sponsor, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.